White Squirrel here. Today we're going to be doing is dismantling all the electronic components that we took out of our generator disassembly. I don't know if you'll remember that little adventure. We got 490 pounds of copper out of it, and now we have all these electronics have been sitting outside for a little while. I don't feel confident in being able to resell them and guaranteeing what their working condition is like. So we'll take them all apart and see how we can separate all this and what kind of goodies we can get out of all of them. Okay, so we have everything split into its different major components. These are all copper cord wires. I've been noticing with those, you gotta be careful. Some of the wires are like aluminum coated, so they look aluminum on the outside, but I've tried melting a couple and they're really copper cord. So what I've been doing is cutting them, and if you cut them, you can tell that the inside is copper. That's the best way I've been telling you to find that out. Here we have a couple of electronic controls, a nice big capacitor. I'm going to do a little research on that before tearing into it. A couple of relays. We had our electronic contacts. So I took some of these contacts out, hoping it might be silver, and I'm split one apart. I'm thinking it might be silver coated. You can see a little bit of copper color on the inside, but that'll be for a later project. And here is our aluminum wiring and a couple of aluminum nuts and bolts that were hanging on to the electronics. So with all that, I'm going to start tearing into the electronics and seeing what kind of good stuff we can find from the inside. I'm going to start off with the voltage inverter. Nice big one. It's got a little bit of heft to it. Seems like the housing is aluminum at the very least, so we'll see what we get out of it. Well, this one is fun. This is all epoxy. So we're going to try cutting into it and seeing if maybe we can't salvage anything out of that. So I've been chipping away at this for a little while. It's completely epoxied in. Looks like there may be some good components in it, but really at this point it's not worth my while for what I might get out of it in small scale. I'm a big base metal scrapper. I don't deal much with electronics, so this to me, might see if one of my buddies will want to tackle this challenge, but this is a little bit more than what I'm willing to take on at this point. Still got a nice bit of aluminum out of it, a couple of little odds and ends into the housing. I think this will make a nice little casting project in the furnace. This one is a controller. Housing is made out of aluminum. It looks like it'll be easier to take apart than the last one, so let's have at it. Ooh, pretty. Now I hear lots of these capacitors, and some of these other components have silver and some precious metals inside of them. I don't have too much experience with it, but what I'd like to do is have an accumulation of all these and see if I can dissolve and then precipitate all of the silver out of circuit boards. So I'm going to start collecting these and then seeing what kind of information I can gather out of these components. Okay, so each one of these coils weighs 12 ounces fully assembled, and then disassembled and stripped into its copper components, we have 4 ounces. Not the best yield, but a few of those together and I'll be able to do a nice melt. And there we have it, the end line. What the heck is that, you might ask? Well, I happened to try mixing some casting sand. I've never done it before, so I put a little bit together and I decided to try melting the aluminum housings we had just to see how it behaves. This is the result. It can only get better from here. And here's a little bit of how it went. All the wires have been stripped. Miscellaneous copper from coils and other components. The electronics that I'm not going to touch yet, but will be coming up. Terminal ends. I cut all the terminals off of my wires, even if they're copper, like these, they're all copper. I've had bad experiences going to the scrapyard, them claiming it's brass, mixed copper, and an entire batch of, let's say, 100 and some pounds of copper, and giving me 40 cents a pound instead of $2.30. So now I cut all the terminals off, and I started melting these for fun as a little side project. So that's what I do with all my terminals. Aluminum wiring and aluminum housings.